Prepare to stare, unveiling the shadows of fear on Fear Files.
Jane visits her husband's grave every year without fail. Now, you might think that's a sweet gesture, but what she discovered one year turned her world upside down. So, Jane's husband passed away a few years back, and ever since then, she's been visiting his grave on the anniversary of his death. She'd bring flowers, sit by his tombstone, and just reminisce about the good times they had together. It was her way of keeping his memory alive, you know? But one year, as she was sitting there, something caught her eye. She noticed that carved into the tombstone, right next to her husband's name, was her own name. At first, she thought she was seeing things, but when she looked closer, there it was clear as day. Her name, with her birth date and a blank space for the year of her death. Can you imagine how she must have felt? I mean, seeing your own name carved into a tombstone next to your husband's? It's enough to make your blood run cold. She tried to brush it off as some kind of mistake, but deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning of some kind. From that day on, Jane couldn't shake the feeling of dread that hung over her like a dark cloud. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything else but that ominous message on the tombstone. She started to feel like she was being watched, like someone or something was following her wherever she went. She tried to talk to her friends about it, but they just brushed it off as her imagination running wild. But Jane knew deep down that something wasn't right. She started researching the history of the cemetery, trying to uncover any clues that might explain what was happening to her. And then one day, it all clicked into place. She stumbled upon an old legend about the cemetery, about how it was built on top of an ancient burial ground, cursed by a vengeful spirit. According to the legend, anyone who disturbed the spirits resting there would be cursed to join them in death. Jane was terrified, but she knew she had to confront whatever was haunting her. So, armed with nothing but a flashlight and her courage, she returned to the cemetery one night, determined to uncover the truth. As she walked among the graves, she felt a cold chill run down her spine, like she was being watched by 1,000 unseen eyes. And then she saw it, a shadowy figure lurking among the tombstones, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She knew then that she wasn't alone, that whatever was haunting her was real. But instead of running away, she stood her ground, facing down the spirit with a steely resolve. And just like that, the curse was broken. The figure vanished into the night, leaving Jane shaken but alive. From that day on, she never went back to the cemetery again, but the memory of that night will stay with her forever. And every time she thinks back on it, she'll remember the warning carved into her husband's tombstone, a reminder of the thin line between life and death. So this psychiatrist, let's call him Dr. Smith, he had this reputation for being able to work miracles with troubled children. Parents would come to him at their wits' end, desperate for a solution to their child's problems. And Dr. Smith would offer them hope, promising to cure their children of whatever was ailing them. But here's where things start to get creepy. Dr. Smith didn't use traditional methods like therapy or medication. No, he had a much more unconventional approach. He told the parents that in order to cure their children, he needed a vial of their blood. Now, you might think that sounds strange, but these parents were desperate. They would do anything to help their children, even if it meant making a deal with the devil himself. So one by one, they lined up to give Dr. Smith what he asked for, hoping and praying that it would be the answer to their prayers. And for a while, it seemed like it was working. The children who received Dr. Smith's treatment showed remarkable improvement, as if their ailments had vanished overnight. The parents were overjoyed, grateful to Dr. Smith for giving them their children back. But then, things started to take a sinister turn. The children who had been cured began to change, becoming withdrawn and secretive. They would have nightmares, waking up screaming in the middle of the night. When the parents asked them what was wrong, they would just shake their heads and refuse to talk about it. It wasn't long before the parents started to suspect that something was seriously wrong. They tried to confront Dr. Smith, demanding answers, but he just brushed them off, saying it was all part of the healing process. But deep down, the parents knew that wasn't true. And then, one day, they made a horrifying discovery. They found Dr. Smith's office abandoned, as if he had vanished into thin air. But that wasn't the worst part. When they searched the office, they found vials of blood, each one labeled with a child's name. That's when they realized the truth. Dr. Smith wasn't curing their children. He was using them for some twisted experiment. And now, their children were paying the price for their desperation. It was a chilling reminder that sometimes the cure can be worse than the disease. I've got a story. It's about this photographer. Let's call her Amber, who traveled to an Indian reservation for her next big project. But what she found there was beyond anything she could have imagined. So, Amber had heard about this reservation from a friend who said it was a photographer's paradise. The natural beauty, the rich culture, it was like stepping back in time. She was excited to capture it all through her lens, to share the stories of the people who called this place home. But when she arrived, something felt off. The reservation was eerily quiet, like the calm before the storm. Amber brushed it off as her imagination running wild, eager to get started on her project. She set out with her camera, ready to capture the essence of the reservation in all its glory. But as she started taking photos, she noticed something strange. In the places where there should have been people, there were only shadows. It was like they were there one minute and gone the next, disappearing into thin air before her very eyes. At first, Amber thought it was just a trick of the light, but as she continued to explore, she realized it was something much more sinister. Everywhere she went, the shadows followed her, lurking just out of sight, watching her every move. She tried to shake the feeling of unease that settled over her like a dark cloud, but the shadows wouldn't let her. They seemed to whisper to her, urging her to leave, to get out while she still could. But Amber was determined to uncover the truth, to capture the mystery of the reservation on film. As she delved deeper into the reservation, she discovered the reason behind the shadows. It was a dark secret, buried deep beneath the surface, one that the people of the reservation had tried to forget, but Amber wouldn't let it stay hidden any longer. Armed with nothing but her camera and her courage, Emily set out to expose the truth. And when she finally did, it sent shockwaves through the reservation and beyond. The shadows were more than just figments of her imagination. They were the echoes of a past that refused to be forgotten. But even as Emily's photos brought the truth to light, she couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were still watching her, waiting for her to reveal their secrets. And as she packed up her camera and prepared to leave, she couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries lay hidden in the shadows of the reservation. Thank you for braving the unknown with us. Until next time, stay haunted.